Welcome to Understanding Organisations, Session 4, Organisational Status. At the end of this session, you should be able to identify the key attributes of a variety of different organisation status and reflect on the legal status of your own organisations. For the purposes of this session, we're going to look at organisations operating across a number of sectors. These sectors are going to include the private for-profit sector, the public sector, the third sector, which is also called the not-for-profit sector, and a number of other structures which include franchises and cooperatives. Within each of these areas, they need a legal framework to operate. Let's first of all look at the private and for-profit sector. The first, most simplest area is as to operate as a sole trader. It's ideal for a small business or for a business startup. It'll have one person who's legally responsible for the organisation, and no formal registration is required except for tax and insurance purposes with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs and the Department of Work and Pensions. The sole trader has unlimited personal liability and all their personal assets are at risk. So they are at risk at losing their car or their house if they go bankrupt. An example of this would be a carpenter, maybe a plumber or other trader who would typically be a sole trader. But a sole trader is able to use other people to work for them. The second area we're going to look at are partnerships. This is a framework where 2 to 20 partners can operate under a trading name. There's no need for formal registration, again except for tax and insurance purposes. A partnership, however, needs to be set out to agree the terms of the partnership. There is also need for financial records. Again, like a sole trader, there is, however, personal liability and personal assets are at risk. The third area we're going to look at for private for-profit sector is a limited liability partnership. This was introduced in 2001 to offer partnerships the benefit of limited company status. The limited liability partnership is registered through Company House, and the individual personal liability can be limited to an agreed amount, thus ensuring that personal assets are protected. Private limited companies. This status is a separate legal identity which is registered with Companies House. It's owned privately and cannot be offered as shares to the general public. A private limited company can operate through only one director, and its liability can be limited by a legal agreement to the amount of from £1 onwards. Annual audited accounts have to be submitted to Companies House. Many small local companies use this status. The final status for private and for-profit sector are public limited companies. These tend to be large organisations such as Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's. They are separate legal identities registered with Companies House, but a public limited company is able to offer shares to the public. There are a minimum of 2 directors and there's a minimum share capital required. Annual audited accounts have to be submitted and available to the general public. The public sector is made up of central, local government and public corporations, universities, schools, colleges, hospitals, criminal justice systems and business owned by the government. In the last 20 years, the number of government-owned businesses in the UK has reduced and very few remain, but those that are British Nuclear Fuel and Royal Mail, to name a couple. There are other business types, and these include cooperatives. Cooperatives are owned by their staff, who are called members of the organisation. Profits are shared amongst members. Losses are also shared amongst members. Leading cooperatives include John Lewis Credit Union, cooperative supermarkets, and all their other trading operations. Franchises. This is where a business idea is licensed to a franchisee. The owners of the brand receive a license fee and often a percentage of the profits. The franchise gains the right to use the business brand. Leading franchises include organisations such as Subway and McDonald's fast food outlets, and a chain of hotels called the Days Inn. Going to move on to not-for-profit sector now. These organisations exist for purposes other than profit. These might include charitable, cultural, sporting, scientific, religious or community needs. Any surplus from not-for-profit organisations goes back into the organisation's funds. Funds coming from a range of sources, including grants, lottery bids, fundraising activity, provision of services, including trading. Not-for-profit organisations have constitutions and objects, that's charitable objects, which provide the operating framework. Not-for-profit organisations can be given charitable status by the Charities Commission, to whom these charities are accountable. Organisations such as sporting clubs, faith groups, all come under this status. There are a number of not-for-profit structures, and these include charitable trusts and associations. A charity can also be a company limited by guarantee. It could be an industrial provident society or a community interest company. There is soon to be a new status of not-for-profit structure called the Charitable Incorporated Organisation. Here the charity needs to send their returns to the Charities Commission. Further information about structures of not-for-profit sector can be obtained from the Charities Commission website. Another not-for-profit structure is increasingly popular and is called a social enterprise. Social enterprises are businesses with social objectives, again such as social, educational or environmental purposes. A social enterprise exists to raise money through activities such as trading, selling goods or services. Any surplus is reinvested into the social enterprise organisation. Annual returns go to Companies House if registered as a company limited by guarantee, or to the Community Interest Company Regulator if the social enterprise is registered as a community interest company. National social enterprises include the Big Issue and Fair Trade. Local social enterprises in Plymouth include Devonport Regeneration Company, Get Up and Go Childcare, and the Wolseley Community Economic Development Trust. Activity 1. What is the legal status of your organisation? Explore what sector you're in and what is the legal status. How does this legal status affect the way your organisation operates? Record your thoughts and observations in your learning journal.